Hello everyone, welcome back to Where Swans Walk. This week we've got Hugh and James and myself doing a match review of Swans v Sheffield United. Swans dominated but failed to hit the back of the net on multiple occasions. So we'll have a match day review, a review of the summer transfer window, who needs to come in and who needs to leave. The Prem is back. Is the Championship getting further and further away of Premier League quality, and are the clubs staying up and going yo-yo back and down? And we've got a kit review of the home kit of this season, what our thoughts are and where it stands in our favourites of club history. So let's jump right into it. What did you both think of the game on Saturday?
Much better, if I'm being honest with you, millions of miles away from what we saw at Middlesbrough. We actually looked like we were going to try and play through the thirds and try to make use of that excellent midfield that we've got. I thought Malik Yalkoué was absolutely outstanding. We saw the very best of Ethan Galbraith. I still can't believe we only paid 1.5 million for him. He was an absolute joy to watch. He just looked to cut above everyone on that pitch. Again, though, you can see now that we've got someone like Yalkoué who's comfortable on the ball, it does seem that we are trying to go back to sort of how we played a little bit towards the end of last season. However, the fact that we failed to hit the back of the net for such a long time was a little bit of a concern. I still think we're crying out for a striker there. I was actually quite surprised how poor Sheffield United were. I know they've had a bit of an upheaval, but they just looked miles off it.
Yeah, spot on, mate. Completely agree. I thought we were really, really strong in a lot of places. We dominated most of the game. Like you said, though, failed to hit the target. Probably should have been 3 or 4. I actually spoke to Sheehan after the match directly himself, and he said we should have won 5-6-0, mate, today. And I was like, I completely agree. But yeah, I think there's rumours there's a striker incoming this week or next week. So I think that's really the missing piece of the starting 11. I think we'll be fine. I was impressed overall, though. I thought we controlled the game largely.
Yeah. Do you reckon this is a positive moving forward? Come up to next week and looking forward to the end of the season?
Yeah, I think from what we saw in that game there, I think we saw some of the very best of us. There's a few little nitpicky things I'm still a little bit out there on. For example, I think every time the ball drops back to Viggs, rather than looking to play, we are sort of hoofing it towards Cullen, and we are needlessly ceding possession over. And you know, if you play a team with better quality, they're going to pick up on those sort of nothing balls, and they may punish us on it. Also, doing that when Liam Cullen's on the pitch, that's not his forte. I mean, if you had Jan Popnik up there, maybe the ball does stick to him at that point, but yeah, I just thought it was some of those little choices were a little bit, still a few little concerns around them. But on the whole, much, much better. I do feel a lot more optimistic now after what I saw Saturday.
Yeah, completely agree. I thought Burgess had a much better game this week as well. I thought his passing long range is still a little bit off, but I thought he was absolutely solid at the back. Nothing got past him. I think him and Cabango will hit up a really good partnership this year. Midfield is superb. It's absolutely stacked, isn't it? Like you say, Yalkoué was unbelievable. You can see what a talent he is. And Galbraith, I'm not exaggerating, he's going to win the Ballon d'Or, that kid. He's unbelievable. I asked Sky request a bet for the odds and they wouldn't give it to me. They don't.
No, it's just guaranteed up, and that's why they're not offering.
Exactly.
So, well, the game was positive. Not much to talk about really negatively compared to last week.
Yeah.
So we're just going to move on now to summer transfer window. You know, it shuts within, was it next week and a half, I believe, 15 days or something like that. The amount of departures that have left, who do you think still needs to leave, and who do you think should come in to strengthen where needs to be strengthened? Or
Yeah, I think striker's got to be number 1 on the list.
Yeah.
Cullen's not an out-and-out striker for me. I like Vipotnik, but he's failed to set the world on fire. He's had a lot of opportunities the last year and a bit now. You need someone a bit more dynamic in that team. You look at the midfield now, we're starting to play. We need someone a bit more pace and a bit more dynamic up front, and I think we'll be fine. Maybe another centre-back for cover and a wing-back. Midfield-wise, if Stanic's coming in this week as well, I don't think we need anyone else in midfield. I think we've arguably got the best midfield in the league. Yeah, just a couple of players for me. Striker's the big one. And then to go, I know Fulton's been a great servant at the club. I wouldn't be gutted. I think he's a good option on the bench for the last sort of 10, 15 minutes of a game. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's a starting player, that's for sure, anymore. And I wouldn't be upset if he went, let's put it that way.
I managed to have a quick chat with Richard Montague at the end of the fans forum last week, and he said that the sort of the positions we were really looking at is maybe left back cover, another number 6, which looks to be Stamenic as well. But yeah, I agree with you. Their striker is probably the big one for me. I do feel a bit for Jan Potnik. I do feel there is a player in there, and I just feel he's never really had a really consistent run in the team. We have seen glimpses of what he can do, but I think someone who maybe has a little bit more pace about them, plus his kind of presence as well, would be something that we need. Again, I've seen people talking about like Kevin Carlos and Musa Silla on Twitter. I don't know if there's anything in those, but they're sort of strikers that sort of fit that mold really. As for outgoings, this is going to pain me to say this one a little bit, but I'm struggling to see where Ollie Cooper is going to play in our team now that we've got such a competitive midfield. When you look at Stamenic, Stamenic will play as a 6. You've got Franco, Vidal can play as 8. Galbraith can play as a 10. Yalkoué can play further forward as well. So it's like, you look at the numbers in there, and I'm struggling to see where he goes. If it was between him and Fulton, again, I feel rotten saying this. He's been a great sim. Thus, I would probably rather see Fulton go, as we've got more midfielders that can cover in that position. But I am struggling to see where Ollie's going to fit in there. And again, it really pains me to say, because I love Ollie Cooper. He's got fantastic energy. No, he's a Welsh lad as well, Welsh international. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised maybe if we saw those two move on by the end of the window. Possibility of Jan Potnik as well. I thought it was quite telling on the weekend that Alan did not put him on and opted for Bobby Wales instead. That was a really big call. I think that you can maybe read a little bit into that as to what his thoughts are on Jan at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the big bits kind of didn't necessarily go under the radar this week in terms of transfer news that was huge was tying down the two wing backs as well. That's something we haven't really done very well the last few years. We look at Darling leaving on a free and stuff. We managed to tie down two arguably of our most important starting 11, and we've gotten tied down for another few years, which I thought was a huge bit of news as well.
Yeah, and that kind of went under the radar a bit. They didn't even announce it or anything on the website. No. They sort of just ad-libbed it at the fan forum. But time and stay until 2027 is massive because he's such a creative outlet for us. I would maybe, again, being biased, he's probably one of the best attacking left-backs in the league. I don't think that's a stretch to say that, so keeping hold of him is absolutely vital.
Agreed.
So with Ollie Cooper, could you possibly see him, instead of actually leaving on a full transfer, go out on loan to get more minutes and get those minutes under his belt for maybe next season and see where his, as you said last week, when we were saying last week, you don't really know what his best position is. He's not quite an out 6, out 10 midfielder. It's hard to know where he slots in.
I think I'd be more willing to see him go out on a loan. Like I said, I really like Ollie Cooper. I know he does come in for a few pelters from some of our fans sometimes, like you said, because people don't really know where his best position is. Maybe that is the best option. Send him somewhere, maybe another championship side. Get him out there, have a look at where his best position is. Give him the freedom to really go out there and try a few different positions where I would say if he goes to a lower end championship side, he's more than likely going to start every week, because I don't think many people have the depth in midfield that we do now. Personally, I think I would say he's more of an 8 mould. Like I said, he's not quite creative enough to be a 10, but he's got the energy, and I think he has got that little bit of presence about him. You could play him in the 8 role. So if someone could play him there consistently, I'd be sort of interested to see how that would pan out for him.
Yeah, I agree with James. I like him a lot. He's a good lad. Swansea youth product. He's plays for Wales, like you said as well. But I just haven't ever been blown away by him. He's never really made a significant impact over a period of games as well. I know he had injuries last year, but he's just never really had a solid run of performances for me. And I think loan's a good option, because I wouldn't want to see him leave permanently. If he comes and gets some good form and shines at another team, then why not? But for me, I think I'd rather see Fulton leave just because of the age and the fact that Ollie's got a few years on him left and more value to him.
Yeah. And with the striker situation, who would you like to see come in if Potnik does go? Or we obviously want a backup. So who would like to come in as a potential?
There's quite a few names being touted around. There's that Canadian lad. I see Mitrovic mentioned today as well. There's so many. Honestly, I don't know. Nobody specific I've got my eye on, which I think should be somebody with a bit of pace, because we've lacked a pacey centre forward for a while now. The way we're playing, we're quick through the midfield, we're playing through those lines. We need to have somebody with pace on the end to cut through the defence. And I think that's what we need. We don't need another Pirro or Ripotnik. We've got no pace. I think we need somebody with a bit more about them.
I think in saying that, Hugh, I think probably the two I would look at potentially would be the first one, Moussa Silla. I think Moussa Silla gives you the best of both of Jan Vipotnik and Liam Cullen. He can finish in and around the box. He's a bit pacier. He's a bit more mobile. So that would be my first choice. Again, I don't know how realistic that one is. He is ex-Monaco, a very good footballing pedigree. He is with Schalke, even though they're in the Bundesliga 2 at the moment. They're a massive club. So I think if trying to get him would probably maybe a bit of a stretch for us. I know I've seen Kevin Carlos, his name mentioned by a couple of people. I don't really know a lot about him. I know he has only played in Switzerland for about a year. But again, similar sort of player to Moussa Silla. And then, of course, there's Yusuf Arabi, who's been mentioned over the last couple of weeks as well. But again, I don't know if that's got any legs. But if you look at him mobility-wise, I don't think he's as mobile as the other two. I think he's more closer to what Jan Vipotnik is than Silla or Kevin Carlos. So it'd be interesting. I imagine it'll probably be a name that we've not mentioned on here. But I think those kind of molds are the ones that we should be looking at. Someone who can run in behind them, perhaps get on the ball and have the ball played out in front of them, rather than, again, I'll say I like Jan Vipotnik, but I just think the way they're playing at the moment, it isn't really going to suit him that much.
Agreed.
No, I agree. He's a bit more pace on them.
Yeah, 100%. You look at the pace and the dynamism we've got in midfield now. We can't just have them lumping up to someone who's like the Titanic on the edge of the box. So we need someone who can play with them, and match that pace, and the intensity that we've got in midfield, because we've got such a dynamic midfield, full of youth as well, right? We need to match it up front.
Yeah, and we're going to miss out on a lot of chances because of that.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned there, Jim, the Bundesliga 2. Bundesliga 2, very similar to the Championship. Growing every season, a bigger distance between the top flight, the Premier League. It's back this weekend. What's your both opinion on the Championship getting further away from the Premier League? Do you think it's going to catch up again? Do you think we're just going through a blip? What's your stance there? Because the last 2 seasons, all 3 teams have gone up and come back down.
I mean, that's happened for a while now. There's a lot of pro teams have struggled to make a real impact in the last sort of 3 or 4 years. I would like to see some more Championship teams stay up. I think Burnley will be straight back down again. I think the best chance is probably going to be Leeds. Sunderland have spent a lot. They've put in some good players, but again, are they going to stay up? Is that gap too big? When you look at the teams who finished just above the relegation zone in the Premier League last year, who were they? Man United and Tottenham. Yeah. So is the gap growing? Yeah, I think it is. Parachute payments, do they help? Obviously, they help the teams relegate, but they help the gap in the Championship. I think they make it worse, and they make teams who have come down stronger for them to go back up and retain their wage structure and their best players. And it makes the gap again then to the playoff teams even worse, personally.
Yeah, I agree with most of what you're saying there, Hugh. I think until you have like a systematic change about maybe the way that the wealth is distributed through the EFL as well, I think we're going to see this happen more and more. Like Reece just said, then the last 2 seasons, the 3 promoted teams have gone up and come straight back down. And then effectively with the parachute payments, you get this kind of like mini league of sort of teams always competing to go back up. They'll come down next season, they'll try to fight to go back up again. I think that tells us that something does need to change. Otherwise, you're just going to see the same 6 teams just bouncing between the Premier League and the Championship. I mean, if you look at every other league across Europe, you don't tend to see that very often. I think it is probably our one is the best example of where, it is literally the guys who fall out of it tend to be the ones that go straight back up. So, again, I remember watching, is it the podcast that Gary Neville did with Daniel Levy, and they said that they did discuss this with the EFL, and the Premier League were happy to do a deal, but the EFL wouldn't sign off on it. Apparently, they wanted more money. So, again, I don't know whether they may discuss it again in the future. Again, I think the EFL should see more money, and because it'll stop things like this happening. Like I said, people remember that is the peak of the pyramid. If underneath the funds aren't filtering down from it, it's going to collapse. It's not going to be competitive anymore. So I think the fundamental issue is the way that funds are siphoned from the Premier League down throughout the EFL. So I think until we get a real big change in that, I think maybe we are going to see the gap grow bigger and bigger every year.
I agree. If the structure of the pyramid isn't sustained, you're not going to get the Premier League. The crown will fall. And I see a lot of people discussing whether it's the top 6 that's the issue in the Premier League, whether the sides are going up and down. But I think the Premier League is also one of the most competitive it's ever been.
Yeah.
And the sides coming up and trying to compete with, even you're looking at your mid-table clubs like Brentford, you know, compare them to your Burnley. They're in a different bracket. You know, but it's how do you bridge that gap is the question, really. Not whether it's getting distance, is how do you bridge it?
Absolutely. But you look at the teams that come down, right? What do the fans say? Look at some of the guys in the other channels in here, right? The first thing they say is, I can't wait to go and watch my team again because we've got a chance of winning, right? Yeah. It's not fun getting promoted and getting battered every week. Look at the Saints fans. They had a torrid year last year. They're looking forward to this year because they've got an opportunity to actually see them win some games potentially. It's not enjoyable unless you can support those teams growing up to be more competitive. Then that's going to keep happening, and people will want to get promoted in the end. They're going to be fed up with it.
Yeah, I remember my dad saying when the Swans first went up, the first couple of seasons were great in the Prem.
Yeah,
and he said when he got to the season where we were relegated, he was more excited then to go watch them because you have the chance of winning. There's a chance of towards something, and not just hoping for survival.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's both. Do you want to stay in the Premier League and have that revenue coming in and etc., or do you want to be in the Championship and have something to push for?
Yeah,
it's a double-edged sword.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Reece. I think when you first go up, you've got no fear. You want to sort of make a name for yourself. You're happy to stick with your identity as to what got you there and made you successful. I think the Swans are a fantastic case of when you move away from that and it just becomes about survival for that revenue. And then that started our decline. You know, if you look at most clubs, I think Brentford are the best example of it going the other way. They've stuck by their principles and they've stuck up there and they've improved year on year. I know this year it's looking a little bit more dicey for them. But again, if you've got a club that's got a clear plan and structure and sticks to it, rather than just goes for the short-term option of, okay, we're going to survive and just get the revenue every year. Yeah, I think those are the far more successful clubs there. So, you know, and again, I know it didn't quite work with Ipswich and Luton. They were kind of the exceptions to the rule of going up. But again, I think they opted for, okay, we're just going to try and, you know, survive as best we can. And we see they've fallen straight back out.
Yeah, I think with Luton, it was just a sort of, we're here, we're finally made it back. Let's enjoy the ride. If we get relegated, we get relegated. But no, it's switches to get back up there and sustain it again. Whereas Luton, unfortunately, they're in League One.
Yep.
So moving on from, you know, the hierarchy, the Premier League, the home kit. Moving on to the home kit review. See who's got the away kit on. That's next week's top bit. It is a beauty, to be fair. Absolute beauty. But the home kit. What is your thoughts on the home kit? What would you rate it out of 10? When you first saw it, did you instantly think, yeah, I've got to get it? Got to get it.
I did, apart from the badge. I bought it, and it's the first home kit I've bought probably in 4 or 5 years. I don't buy them every year anymore. I'm too old now. I tend to buy more for my daughter who comes with me. But this year is the first time I bought both shirts and the home shirt for me as well. It's just the badge puts me off on the home one. If the badge was seamless, stitched on without that big circle around it, it'd look a lot smarter. But overall, it's probably my favourite home kit for at least 3 or 4 years, I'd say. And then, yeah, I think it could be a lot worse.
Yeah, it's such a nice thing. There's not a lot you can do with an all white kit usually, but the little checkered sort of trim that it's got on it, and if you look in the background, it's kind of got that little off white sort of checkered pattern on it. It's really, really nice. I'd say probably 8.5 out of 10 for me. I think this year we've absolutely nailed it with the kits. Talking about all white, the white travel wear, absolutely spot on this year.
I saw all the ground after we came out of the hospitality. We met loads of them outside, and they were all dripping in it. It looked amazing.
Yeah, it's words I described to my dad was filth. Filth.
The filth.
But yeah, I go happy 8.5 out of 10 for
8 as well.
It's I was discussing with my girlfriend. It's one of those, even the away kit, they look like shirts where you can wear out on the town, and it wouldn't look like a football shirt. Yeah. And I like that's where I collect football shirts and I wear them all the time. So to wear them out with jeans, etc., in the town, or whatever, that's something, you know, everything's going in the direction of that. But the way that they've done it this season, even with the retro badge and the away kit and the travel wear, it's just absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely fantastic, phenomenal. Mix them two words up.
I would say that if they wanted to make the home shirt a 10 out of 10, if they put the retro badge in black on the home shirt, instant 10 out of 10, straight to the top, no question.
No question. No, I agree. Even if they made the sponsor black as well, and not that color, that orange color, whatever the hell they call it, it would have been a 10 out of 10 for me.
I think it's the last year for the sponsor, isn't it, this year? And some of the stuff they said at the Fans Forum was leading me to think we've got something big coming next year with the attraction of people like Snoop and Modric helping out. It seems like there's going to be deals that eclipse anything we've done before. So I just think it's a really exciting time for the club all round. The fact stuff right off the field as well as the recruitment on the field. We had such a strong start to the transfer window. Yeah, we had a massive lull for a few weeks. Everyone was getting itchy again. But then with a couple of signings we made recently, a couple more coming in, I think everything is going well, which worries me because it hasn't been that for quite a few years now, the Swans. So I'm getting a bit nervous. But it's just nice to see them getting decisions right for once, because we haven't had that with owners. I won't mention their names because I can't stand them. But I think the two current guys, with the decisions they made, the kits, some of the stuff, there's a few more things to do. But I think overall they've been superb, and they've got that feel-good factor back around the group again.
There's a big buzz around the club at the minute, isn't there? There's big buzz.
It just goes to show when you've got people who are enthusiastic and believe in what we're doing, the difference it can make. We've gone from sort of part-time dentists and doctors from America to a global superstar and a world-renowned rapper as well. So yeah, it's fun times at the moment to be a Swansea fan.
I still can't believe after the game, when I look at Snoop's Instagram story, he's got our score on it and like pictures of Ethan and Franco hugging, and I'm just like, what is going on? If you told me this 6 months ago when we had the other two in charge and things were thoroughly depressing, that we'd have Modric and Snoop on board, I would have laughed you out of the place.
Yeah, you would probably think what drugs you're on. That's what Snoop supplying round the Lando. But I think that's a good way to end the finish on. Big buzz around Swans. Yeah. So that's it. Thank you for listening to Where Swans Walk this week. Thank you, Hugh and James, for joining me yet again. And hopefully next week, another win.
Go on, Swan.